Hi, my name is Melissa, and I'm here to encourage and teach you how to run the nonprofit of your dreams. Your purpose may be to start a nonprofit, but my purpose is to empower and equip you to set up your nonprofit to run with compliance, integrity, and sustainability. I bring my years of experience running a board, working with nonprofits as an employee, a manager, and a consultant so that you can avoid the pitfalls that I've witnessed firsthand. I created Pursuit of Purpose with a powerful mission to connect people to their purpose. I believe that you were given a people group or a cause that matters to you, and you're one of the passionate people on this planet who has committed their desire to do something about it. My goal is to help people like you by starting, improving, and sustaining their nonprofit through my experiences, resources, and consultations. My hope is that you and all of our nonprofit champions listening can each make our corner of the world a better place. So let's turn your passion into action. If you're wanting to have honest, relatable, and informative conversations around what it really takes to run a nonprofit, you've come to the right place.
It's here that helps mobilize women. So that's awesome. I've got a cup of tea. For those of you who are new and listening to the first time, my name is Melissa Rivera. I have started this nonprofit consulting agency from 2020. You might hear my dog jingling in the background. That's Samson for those of you guys who are watching. But yeah, I'm just so excited. I've been doing podcast style Q&As for like a year and change on Facebook, and we finally are making the leap to just put it on Spotify. Eventually I'll put it on Apple and other streaming platforms as well for people to listen to. The last year and change, I've jumped on Facebook Lives and done live Q&As, given people articles and dissected what it is to have a nonprofit and what it looks like to actually answer some of the questions that we don't always know the answer to. A lot of nonprofit founders are very isolated. They feel like no one really understands what they're going through, and it is a whole unique endeavor that is so specific and so beautiful. And so my heart really is to be able to come alongside you and empower you. And I've seen so many amazing people step into the nonprofit field and just kill it and do so good. So my whole shtick is that I really want to help you be sustainable, be compliant, and be able to just do the good stuff you want to do for the long haul. So without further ado, this is the POP Podcast, a podcast for nonprofit founders and anyone interested in doing any kind of nonprofit work. I am going to be sharing today in my first true episode what it is that you need to do to start a nonprofit. So this is from ideation all the way to becoming a 501c3. So what do I mean by that? Really, what do you need to do if you have this desire to start a nonprofit? What are the key actions and resources and costs that you're going to need to if you're a ducks in a row person, this is your podcast, this is your jam, because I'm about to break it down for you so that you know everything that you need to know without feeling too overwhelmed. So I'm trying to strike this balance for us today, but go ahead and keep listening if this is something you're interested in. So, first of all, when you have an idea for a nonprofit, you probably already have step number one, figured out. And so step number one is really to decide on a vision, mission, and purpose for your nonprofit organization. So I'll link this in the show notes. I have a freebie that is literally this checklist that I'm going to walk us through today. But basically, you're going to decide on, I have a nice worksheet that you can go through about what is a vision statement, what is a mission statement, how do you figure out the purpose for your nonprofit. These are all things that are going to help guide you through the process of filing your foundation or your nonprofit. And it's also going to be able to help you navigate decisions as you move forward. So I'll do a whole other podcast on what a vision statement is versus a mission statement. Why purpose is so important. If you look at my old social media posts from, 2024, we did Wednesday Whys. And that was a series where on Wednesdays I would post a lot of leadership quotes, primarily from Simon Sinek, about what is so important about understanding your why and why are you doing something. Anyway, we'll dive into that. Maybe one day we'll even have him on the podcast. That would be like a crazy wild dream. But we call those things out and maybe it'll come into fruition. So, okay. But yeah, so I have a $97 Start a Nonprofit Launch Pad. That's one of the products that I offer. It's a self-paced like course style of work, and it comes with all kinds of templates. So I'll mention a couple of other templates that are used in there. But again, first step is decide on what your nonprofit is going to be about. Step two is to name your organization. Um, you're going to want to do something on a government website. So basically, there's a search engine called USPTO, which stands for US Patent and Trademark Organization. So if you're in the United States listening, this list is really pertaining to you. If you're looking at doing like out of the US nonprofits, that's going to be a whole other ball game and jump on a consultation call with me. I'll link that in the show notes as well. But this again, 501c3, basically, I guess I should back up a little bit here. 501c3 is a portion in the US IRS tax revenue code. And I could nerd about this all day long. But basically, if you want to be doing good work, you can you can start a organization that is tax exempt. And so the IRS tax code and 501c3, that's the section of the tax code 501c3, it lists out the different types of nonprofits that would qualify for this tax exemption. Why would you even want it to be a 501c3? Basically, if you are doing one of those, like I think there's 8 really specifically outlined types of nonprofits, then you can get a tax break. And so that means for you, when you're purchasing supplies or equipment and things like that, you actually won't have to pay tax on it, on those goods. And then you also, when you have donors give to you, they can get a tax benefit as well for giving to you, because basically the government is saying, thanks for doing the hard work that we can't necessarily do on a micro level. You are being the hands and feet in your community, mobilizing good work to be done, filling the gaps of society. And so as a reward, we are going to make it easier for people to contribute to the good work you're doing. Anyway, that's the very, very short version of why 501c3. Okay, so I'll back up. That was the 501c3. Like, why would you even want it? Those are really the 2 reasons. And so, yeah, going back to the list, decide on a vision, mission, and purpose for your organization, name your organization, check with uspto.gov to see if that name for your organization is taken already. You can also do like a Google search and stuff. But again, if you're in the US, USPTO is like gold standard. It's where you're going to need to file. And I know for like the state of Alabama, for example, I had a client and she had to purchase the name of her organization before she was able to file with the Secretary of State. So that's important to know, because you get like a letter essentially saying, yep, this is yours, you own this organization name. And you might need to attach that to the documentation to become like a formal organization. And that really is, so like if I could break all of these, I think I have like 15 steps, and these again are kind of more thorough. But if I were to break it down to like 3 branches of tasks, the first one would be decide on what organization you're going to have. So like that includes vision, mission, purpose, and name of your organization. And then number 2 would be file with the Secretary of State for whatever state you're operating in, or at least like headquartered in. You're going to need to file with them. And then number 3 is actually filing once you have your Secretary of State filing. So that's like overall step 2 if you're going to break it down to 3 steps. Step 3 is really going to be that filing for your 501c3, because that's a federal filing, whereas everything leading up to that is just like with your Secretary of State. So hopefully that makes sense. So let's say you've done steps 1 and 2. The next thing you'll need to do is start to um, like fill out your articles of incorporation. So again, if you're looking at like, where do I find all these documents? You can scrounge around the internet. There's tons of free resources there. But again, I have that $97 Start a Nonprofit Launchpad packet. And it goes through all this stuff in depth, and it has boilerplate legal templates for things like your articles of incorporation. I highlight everywhere that you need to make changes so that you know, hey, this is like where I customize this document to fit my organization. But basically, for step 3, you're going to recruit and name your nonprofit incorporators. So this is basically your initial board of directors. You're going to need at least 3 people to sign this articles of incorporation. In Massachusetts, it is the president, treasurer, and clerk. Some do like president, secretary, treasurer. So look into what your state specifically needs you to call it to be able to be most compliant. Again, it's just verbiage at that point, but those are small details that do matter. And sometimes, depending on who's looking over your documentation, it'll be helpful to have the right things written down. I'm going to pour a scalding cup of tea and then we'll continue. I'm just doing green tea today. I'll probably let you know what I'm drinking in every episode because it's like we're having a little tea conversation. It's kind of nice. Okay, so you have a vision, a mission, and a name for your organization. Those are huge steps. You have figured out your initial board of directors. You have started your articles of incorporation. That's not a long document. It's like 2 to 3 pages once you fill out all the details. Next, you're going to want to appoint a registered agent. So that's step number 4. What is a registered agent? Basically, it's somebody who will receive the legal notices on behalf of the organization. You can outsource this by paying for a registered agent in the state of incorporation, or put yourself as a founder down as the registered agent, and then you can just receive all the mail. Step 5, prepare the articles of incorporation. There again is no cost to this, but then you'll need to file with Secretary of State. There usually is a filing fee for that. So I recommend with all my clients that you just do it online. It's really simple, fast forward, and straight to the point. That would be step number 5. Number 6, actually filing your initial report to send to the Secretary of State. Again, that includes like your articles of incorporation, any other additional documentation. Again, I would go into this more in depth, but for the purposes of reaching a broader audience today, it does vary state to state. So just know that on the Secretary of State website, when you're filing for a nonprofit, they do typically list out all of the documents that you're going to need to submit. So all right. Number 7 is actually really fun because you're at this point done filing with the Secretary of State. That letter that you get as like a, hey, you've done it. You are an organization officially. You're a nonprofit. First of all, congrats when you get there because that's exciting. Second of all, you're going to need to do a couple of things. So specifically, you're going to want to obtain your EIN number. So there's going to be an IRS form SS-4 that you'll need to fill out. You can get your EIN via mail, phone, fax, online. There's a couple options for you. The fee should be $0. I've heard of people who have done like an expedited version of getting your EIN. Up to you. I think it's like over $200 to do that. And I really haven't seen or heard anyone saying that that was worth it for them. So I would just do the regular like EIN filing. I wouldn't do the expedited version if I were to recommend a course of action for you listening. And so, yeah, it should really be a quick turnaround, like immediately if you're online or over the phone, maybe a week or 2. And then I've heard anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks if by mail. So that's obtaining your EIN. Again, there's resources on the IRS website. If you have questions about that, you can always email me at melissa.pursuitofpurpose@gmail.com. I'm happy to like answer questions. And again, there will be a 15-minute free consultation call in the show notes so that if you have questions and you need somebody to like help you figure it out, I'm happy to jump on and figure it out with you. Number 8 is to store your nonprofit records somewhere safe and accessible. Yes, that is a step that I put in my um, document that will be a downloadable checklist for you. Honestly, so many people forget to put all of this stuff, your EIN number, your articles of incorporation. We'll talk about bylaws next, but bylaws, banking information, like somewhere secure, safe, accessible. You're going to need it if, God forbid, something happens to you as the main operator of all of this stuff. You're going to want your board of directors to at least know where it is and where to access it, or somebody else that's helping you run the organization. So store them somewhere safe and accessible. Establish bylaws. So this is one of my favorite steps. And again, it's because like I'm a little bit of a law nerd. Part of my background is in legal studies. And so I did do some law school because I wanted to understand all this stuff behind this. And that's a whole story I'll go into in another episode. But your bylaws are the rules of running your organization. And so there are a couple of key things you're going to need to do, including a conflict of interest policy. So again, if you download and you purchase that $97 Start a Nonprofit Launchpad, it has sample bylaws for you with highlighted areas. And like, I think it's the first 3 pages and the last 2 pages of like what changes you need to make. I have done cohorts where I've talked people through what all that legal jargon means because that is huge. I really recommend that you try to understand what the bylaws say because it is a lot of legalese, but it's also really important. And if you're going to be using like boilerplate options and not going through having a lawyer, and you really don't need to have a lawyer. And again, this is just me, friend to friend. This is not legal advice. But it's so expensive. I've heard of friends who, before they met me, got a quote for over $2,000 or $3,000, depending on what state, just to set up their bylaws. Not any other bonus features, but just to set up their bylaws. And like these are people who want to do good things, and that's $3,000 that could have been used for something else. I get fired up about these things because that is obscene and terrible. And it just makes my heart hurt because I'm like, there are hungry kids they could be feeding with that $3,000 or like fundraisers that they could have like done like I don't know there's just so much more you could spend $3,000 on than a document that is really like almost always 80 to 90% the same. That's just my opinion. Anyway, download the $97 Launchpad, book a call with me, spend under $200 to get what like anyway, just download the Launchpad. It'll save you a lot of time, money, headaches. And again, if you have questions, email me, melissa.pursuitofpurpose@gmail.com. All right. So at this point, you know who you are, you know who you serve, you have your mission, vision, you filed with the Secretary of State, you're like halfway there. You have your initial incorporators because you finished your articles of incorporation. So now that you have that and you're finishing up your bylaws, you can simultaneously hold your first board of directors meeting. I have outlined in this PDF that I will have downloadable on my website sample board meeting agenda items. I suggest a couple of things for your first meeting to be like approving your bylaws or what you have so far. Specifically, how do you want to adopt your conflict of interest policy, electing and appointing officers, approving resolutions such as opening an organization's bank account. What bank do you want to do? There's a lot of work that goes in, there's a lot of pre-work for this meeting. If you are the founder slash president of the organization and you're doing all the filing, which is mostly every client I've had, you're like, meet with me. I will probably be doing some master classes throughout the year specific to those of you who are thinking about starting a nonprofit because the learning curve is great, but it's not forever. And so if you are new to running an organization, take it step by step. That is why I have this 15 item checklist. Um, I have things linked out for you. So like download this for sure. Like you're gonna, regardless of if you purchase the $97 Launchpad, it still has some great links and some great resources for you to just tick off what is gonna work for you, how to move forward. The other thing I'll say, and this is a little bit off topic, but people need support when they're doing this. I've had clients that have like waited 5, 10, 15 years before starting their nonprofit. They had the idea, they had the mission, they had the vision, and the name sometimes even. And they just need a little extra support. If that's you and you're like, this is a lot of steps, and I don't know if I'm going to stick with it, book a call with me, like work with me. Um, if you're not going to do that, like even just a 15-minute call, I will help you figure out who in your life will support you and keep you accountable in this. I really love doing group consultation because we form a community. And in those group consultations, we'll meet from anywhere from like 3 to 6 months is typical for like this like initial starting a nonprofit idea to 501c3 phase. And we'll work through everything. We'll talk about bylaws. We'll talk about how to get a board of directors together. We'll talk about filing and questions that come up for your unique situation. Yeah, so that's a lot of content already. I'm trying to like be mindful of like how much time I'm spending because I could literally talk about this for hours. Um, but yeah, you're going to want to hold your first meeting with your board of directors. There are sample agenda items, take notes, and then file those notes where you're saving everything. Because, of course, now you know you're storing your nonprofit records somewhere safe and accessible. All right, so now that you've had your bylaws and your articles of incorporation, all that other stuff, um, you can finally apply for your 501c3 tax exemption. And there's a typo in my document. There it is fixed. There is the form through the IRS, Form 1023, or 1023 Easy. So if you're just starting your organization and I think it's under $500,000, is you're under that for your operating budget, Form 1023 Easy, and that's EZ, as in like the letter E and the letter Z. I have that linked in this document, but um, essentially, like it's like a report card for your organization. Yeah, so there are instructions on my document that I have that I'll share with you. You just need to like join the email list and it'll download you can download the PDF from there. I have instructions for the Form 1023, 1023 EZ, and the IRS Form 1024, and then a couple of other things. You'll file it by mail usually, and then it's $275 for those of you filing Form 1023 Easy, and for 1023 regular is $600. Usually the turnaround for the Easy is a month or less, and then 1023 is 3 to 6 months. I've heard it take as long as 9 months. So I've kind of done this particular like step 11 has this applying for your 10. There are so many numbers. applying for your 10, applying for your 501c3 through finishing your 1023 Easy or regular. But yeah, anyway, most of you, 1023 Easy is all you need to remember. And that'll take like a month or less to get your like results back essentially. Okay, this step 12 is newer. So for those of you who maybe have a friend that has started a nonprofit like a couple of years ago, they probably didn't have to do this when they were initially filing, although they've had to do it since. There is something called the Beneficial Ownership Information Report. So BOI is the shortened term that you'll see. So it's a new ruling as of January 1st, 2024. And it's a report that is given to FinCEN, which is like part of the Corporate Transparency Act. I've linked it in the document. So it's boiefiling.fincen.gov. But again, that's linked in here. So again, you can just download this PDF and you'll be able to click the link. So report, do your BOI report. The last couple of things are kind of more tight, like wrapping up the loose ends. Honestly, step 11 and 12, you're a 501c3 nonprofit. I do recommend that you look into other state tax exemptions once you have your IRS determination letter. Those vary state to state, but step 14 in this document says like an example, which is charitable solicitation. And a lot of people do that from fundraising. That's a filing that you'll need to do annually. And then I have in step 15 other business permits and licenses. Again, state or locale specific. It could even be county. So like, for example, Massachusetts nonprofits that wish to conduct bingo, casino nights, raffles, pull tabs, or other charitable games must become a charitable gaming agent at the Massachusetts Lottery Charitable Gaming Division. And then the licenses depend on what type of game, what kind of lottery, etc. But yeah, that's my list for you guys. I hope it's really helpful. Again, it's just like a quick guide to get you started on the right foot. There are some extra steps that I've tried to comment on throughout this 15-step list. There's going to be the link to my $97 nonprofit launchpad for all those extra worksheets like the bylaws and articles of incorporation. In that launchpad, there's also a document that I love to give to nonprofits. It is a board agreement form, so it sets out the legal duties and expectations out for your board members. So when you're recruiting, I often tell people to bring this document. It's like a page or two, just so they know what they're getting into. Like a lot of people are nervous because they've never been on a board before. What responsibilities is it going to hold? Am I going to be legally responsible? Like, what does that look like? It's an incredible document. It's so straightforward. A lot of people just don't do that, and it's fine, but also like, why not? Why not make it clear and easy for people to be a part of what you're doing? That's really a lot of what this podcast is going to be about, is how can we make it easy for you to help people do good and other people joining your cause? Like, how can we get the most amount of people to do the most amount of good? That's like gonna be the vibe. I'm so excited. But yeah, so takeaways, I would say sign up for my email list and download this specific PDF. If you would like to jump on a 15-minute call, that is going to be linked below. I can even put that on the download so that you can click that link as well. I do a free 15-minute mini consult for people. So if you put some notes in the Calendly, I can figure out like what maybe is the best thing to like do with our 15 minutes. So yeah, join the email list, subscribe to the podcast, share it with people, put it on social media. I would appreciate that so much, especially this being a brand new podcast. Yeah, thank you for listening. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about a lot of things. So we have that kind of, this has been like the filing 101. I have this checklist. Initially, I was going to do 2 episodes, just kind of like anyway, I'm digressing. But like, we're going to talk about like some of those details. I brushed over things like, what is a board of directors? We didn't even talk about that. There's so much to be said, and I will say it. Finding board members, board member retention, and board member agreements. Naming your nonprofit. I'll have tips and suggestions, the 3 legal duties for you and your board. When to see a lawyer. I've got resources with different people that would be incredible for you to connect with. whether that's marketing and branding or nonprofit accounting. So yeah, and we're gonna have some incredible guest speakers throughout this podcast. I'm so pumped for what's to come this year. You guys, honestly, like nonprofits are so incredible because there's so much need in this world. And I hope you can genuinely feel like my heart behind this because I'm getting like a little emotional. There are just situations and circumstances that are so challenging. And for you to be listening through podcast number one and have heard the jumble of steps that it takes to just start and to exist as a nonprofit, it is so much work, but it's so worth it. Like the amount of clients I've had that have had an idea, finally let like their dream come true to help people. Like how, first of all, how incredible is that? That like people have a dream to help other people. I think we forget in this world like that there's so much garbage going on and like it's easy just to chalk it up as like that's just how things are. But like it doesn't have to be that way all of the time. Like there are really great people who are doing really great things. And if you want to be a part of a community that cares about being good to other humans and to our world and to those that are going to come after us, like keep listening because I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to just thrive and like let that magic just kind of like flourish. So keep doing what you're doing. Cheers to us. Cheers to the POP podcast. Cheers to the nonprofit founders that exist and that are gonna exist in the coming months. And thank you again so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share the podcast and sign up for the email list if you haven't already. All right, and that is everything. Thank you so much. I was nervous about recording this podcast because it's like just the first is always like exciting and nerve-wracking, but this was really fun and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys soon.